Yeah. Family, y'all. Just keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight. Oh, right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Here we go, here we go.
My vocation to ministry in the church started around 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago when I was serving in the Air Force in the reserves. And on one Sunday we were given an option to either clean the dorms with toothbrushes on the floor or go to chapel or church, and what they call it chapel because they don't call it church out there. So I decided I needed to go to that. I didn't want to spend 3 or 4 hours doing the other thing. I think 95% of us went. And since I knew I was baptized Catholic, I went to the Catholic chapel. And the chaplain there spoke about service and ministry and different vocations for different people, trying to kind of, I don't know what his message was trying to be directed at, but it hit me and struck me with a chord, thinking, well, maybe my service should be in the peaceful realm and not in the military realm. So after I was discharged and let go, I came home, told my mom, you know, we need to go back to worshiping, we should go back to church. She was Catholic, I was baptized Catholic, so we decided we're going to go find and seek out a Roman Catholic church in California where we lived in Walnut Creek. So the closest one to us was St. Mary's. And we went there, and there was a dynamic priest named Father Robert Reen. And he was one who was very nurturing, but very, very drawing. He was really, really good to just bring you in. And so after a few months I approached him and asked him, you know, I'm really called to finding where I'm going with this. And I'd like to start in some sort of ministry, liturgically. And he suggested lecturing to start with. So I went through the classes. He said they would start in September, trained as a lector and started doing that. Then no later than 3 or 4 months after that, they transferred him to a different parish, which is unfortunately more common than not in our Roman counterpart world. And so at that point, we just made the decision that Oakland was only a 30-minute drive. We decided we were going to go and follow him. Well, the parish that he was assigned to was a rather smaller one, not much money, it was a poorer parish, and was one that he could work with and mold from the ground up. So by doing that, that allowed him to have more flexibility in what he wanted to do. And also by doing so, he was able to kind of pick and choose who he wanted to work with him. And at that time I had done enough and he had seen where I was going that he asked me if I would like to be sacristan. And of course I thought that would be wonderful because I had been reading about what the different things were in the church and I thought, wow, that's really a great thing because I like to do things behind the scenes and things of that sort. So I started working in the sacristy, which got me involved in Eucharistic ministry, coordinating the Eucharist area, helping with the altar guild, just about every aspect of what happens liturgically, that put me right in that ballpark. And from there, it allowed me to really feel and affirm where I was going with my call. And of course the people I worked with around me and the various congregants, we all came together as a family, and it really put me in that mindset, this is what I really want to pursue. So I went to apply to become a diocesan priest in Oakland. Got through the process, was accepted for candidacy, and was ready to go to school. And due to some circumstances well beyond my control, I was informed that this wasn't going to work out this time. So at that point I was rather disappointed and thought, well, maybe this isn't for me, and decided that I'd put things on hold for a while. So things were quiet for a number of years. Ended up getting married, and at that point in my mind I thought, well, that's it, I'm done, because in the Roman world the only thing you can do being married is being permanent deacon. So I thought, that's enough, I'm just going to move on with this. Well, I was informed about a friend of mine who we worked together with at St. Paschal's in Oakland, which was that parish I was speaking of. And I was told he was ordained a priest in an independent Catholic church, and I'm like, what is that? Well, by then the internet was there in full glory, and we were able to work around that. So I started Googling his name and then the jurisdiction that he was a part of. And it was American Catholic Church. Googled both, didn't find Kevin, but I found the American Catholic Church in the United States because that was the first one in the search engine and clicked on that. Did some reading about our founding Archbishop Harms, what his mission was, and the biggest thing was the fact that he allowed married priests. And I thought, whoa, this is something that can happen. This is something that could work. So I spoke with them, their vocations person, applied, accepted, went out to Maryland, and the rest is all history in that regard. Became a deacon, ordained a priest, served in Milwaukee for a while that way, and then at some point in 2009 did the election, became a bishop, and then now, as I always say, the proverbial the rest is history type of thing. So that's really how the vocation came about. One little seed that was planted by one individual who decided that this is something I'm going to talk about, struck a chord with me, and from there followed what God decided to take me on, the path. I was open to that, and that's how this all came about. The Theological Institute that we currently have was just a dream that the Archbishop had. Luckily, I'd had a lot of formation and building within my Roman experience, and didn't finish formally the school training at that level, but I had the philosophy background. So what we did is a little bit of a reverse trend, which was a lot of on-the-job training. So from the time I was admitted to candidacy to my ordination was 3 or 4 years. And in that time, I was lucky enough that we had a parish priest in the Milwaukee area, so I was able to work directly under him. We did do a few courses. I did scripture. I did some independent studies with the Archbishop. I think my formation course-wise was a lot different than what we have now. Things we did, I spent a lot of time with Archbishop Harms and did a lot of travel with him. And it was more of a mentorship and then working in the realm of the on-the-job portion of it. We built on the homiletics. We built on things. Basically, he put me into the fire. He said, okay, Bill, you're ready. I'm going to have you do the homily today. And it's like, I didn't prepare anything. No, it's okay. You're prepared. I want you to read the gospel and the readings, and you're going to do the homily today. That was the kind of things he did to prepare people. He kind of nurtured you along, and then when he was ready, cut the cord and boom, right into whatever it was that you needed to do. Once the institute got built, whatever courses I needed to fill in, I worked with the people who are in there, and this was prior to becoming a bishop, of course, trying to fill in those gaps. Luckily, it was only a handful of items, and those were things that I enjoyed. Spirituality, some of the deeper aspects of the theology around the liturgy and things of that sort. So there wasn't anything that was really challenging. I think life itself is the teaching platform, and at times that can be like a roller coaster, up and down, and the lows are the ones that are the hardest, and the highs are the ones that are the fun, the greatest. To me, that is the heart of what it is to be, the liturgical aspects of what it is to be a priest or a deacon. The sacraments is what draws the people in. It's really not the church, and that's my opinion. It may differ across the lines, but what my experience has been, especially in Oakland, during a time where the parish was basically, I could count the number of people in the pews, to 6 months later when we were almost overflowing. The sole reason for that was what Robert brought to the people, which was the sacraments and the liturgy around that. And when you enrich your liturgy, and it's engaging, both spiritually, with the senses, your eyes, your ears, your smell, the tastes. And how do you do that? Well, we handmade our Eucharistic bread, so it's better than the texture that you get with the wafers. He used different wines. It wasn't the same wine all the time. So you didn't know what you were going to get each week. You came to church thinking, well, what is he going to do this week? And that engagement from the liturgy and from how he did and distributed the sacraments, that is really the heart of who we are and what we do. Because Christ instituted those sacraments for us to in his name, confect with all those around us. And, my experience in that, at the priestly level, was very fulfilling. to this day, that is my primary focus, even as a bishop, is to make sure those sacraments across the board, across this country, across to all of our parishes, are delivered validly and with the amount of thought and love that needs to go into them, because that's what the people want and that's what they come for. Joys of any ministry is seeing in the people's eyes when they receive the sacrament. Or when I work with couples who wish to get married, their disappointment that their first choice wasn't available because of some restriction that they were given. Whereas when they come to me, it's like, what do you want to do? They're just like a weight's lifted off their shoulders. Just knowing that we can serve people unconditionally, that's the ultimate joy that you can ever have, because you know there's no restrictions on them, and there should be no restrictions on the sacrament. Challenges of ministry. Liturgically, there's certain things that you are restricted to do. I mean, you have to play by the rules, the rubrics, so to speak. There's times where you would like to be able to accommodate some requests that are way out there, but you also know that, there's certain guidelines you got to stick within. You want to meet the challenges for the people, but at the same time, you have to stay, and for lack of a better term, you have to stay Catholic. You have to remain within the Catholic realm. That's not something that came from Rome. That's not something that came from Constantine. It didn't come from any human being. It came from Jesus Christ saying that these sacraments are the way you must do them. It's how we interpret that, but at the same time, there's certain ground rules that happen. Now, some of the challenges of other ministries, not everyone is born and bred to do certain things. And one of those, and I'll be the first to admit it, a prison ministry is not one that I can feel comfortable doing. But yet, doing grief ministry and being around funerals and the deceased and that, no problem, doesn't faze me. But others are kind of weirded out or freaked out about that type of ministry. Challenges for me is if I have to go in certain places that are not comfortable for me, but that's when you have to allow the Spirit to, you just got to do this and go forward. This isn't quite a season, but to me it is a season, and that is the Holy Triduum. From Holy Thursday all the way through the Easter Vigil. That part of the church year is central and core to who we are. And in that core, you have highs and lows, the veriest of lows and the highest of highs. You really encompassing who we are as Catholics through the sacraments, the institution of the sacraments, the death of our Christ, the resurrection. Our entire salvation is there in those 3 days that are one. Liturgically, it's the most challenging, it's the most rewarding. It is one of those times of the year where, for me, that is the whole calendar right there. So for me, it's the Triduum. Right now, and it has been for quite some time, even before our brethren in Rome declared him Saint Damien of Molokai. If you've been there to Kalapapa, you'll know what I mean. For someone to have devoted their life to people who had this contagious and horrible disease of leprosy, or Hansen's disease. Healthy individual to go out there and just care for these people unconditionally. It is epitome of who we are too in this church, and our mission of serving everyone unconditionally no matter what. Saint Damien for me encompasses both the Hawaiian Island aspect for me as well as who we are in the ACCUS. My main hobby, which I've had since junior high, which was before I even thought of doing ministry, was meteorology and the weather. I outside of church, even when I'm on trips and that, I live and die by that. I love the weather. I love what it does. Even when I was here and looking last night, the backlit of the towering cumulus off to the southeast, I was just like, oh, I love looking at that and seeing these clouds. The other night we had a rather intense thunderstorm. I mean, it just intrigues me. I like, well, gotta look at this. I gotta understand it. I want to do it. In fact, if I hadn't gone in the vocational path, I probably would have been a meteorologist. That was where my heart was set. I had thought of that and working on that, but God had different plans for me. Hand in hand with meteorology is aviation. I love to fly. I don't mind travel. If I had the ability to do it, I'd be flying myself. In fact, I do have a pilot's license, but because of the role I'm currently in, I think half the church would not allow me to fly, so I don't do that right now. But I love to fly, and of course flying and the weather go hand in hand. So it's a natural that those things go together. Some of my other hobbies, I love going to professional baseball games, watching baseball. It's kind of a release for me. When I go to the ball game, shut off the phone, church is off the grid for a while. It's 3 hours where I can just enjoy what's going on out in the field. One of my other great interests is travel. I love to do that with my wife. I think that's because my dad used to work for TWA, Old Trans World Airlines, in the 60s. Because of that, we had reduced fares to be able to, that was one of the perks of working for an airline. I can remember when I was just only so high. My first flight was when I was 6 months old. That was from Chicago to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, on an old de Havilland D. We called them mosquitoes because they sounded like mosquitoes, just with the engines. That was my first flight, and from what my parents said, I enjoyed it because it was really turbulent. And I says, a horsey ride, horsey ride, horsey ride. So I mean, I've been the travel bug all my life. For me, a mode of transportation is a plane. Some people prefer bus or car. If I can get on a plane, my rule is if it takes more than 8 hours to get somewhere, I got to find a way to do it by air because my time is valuable. I'd rather do it that way. For any of those who know me really well, and you will all soon know me very well, my favorite travel destination is Hawaii. The Hawaiian Islands, by far. I love them. They are a place where my wife will even say that as soon as I get off the airplane, I'm a whole different person. I get color on my face, I'm recharged, I have energy even after a 6-hour journey. I feel alive when I'm over there. I feel the people, I feel everything that is about the islands. It wakes me up and invigorates me, and I just love to be there. It's just one of those destinations that I look forward to every year that we go there. In fact, I've been going for over 30 years. Once I found out, every one of us has a place we want to go to. Some find it, others strive to find it, others think they found it. I know I found it, and that's it. That's the place for me. So we go every year at a minimum. And if I can go twice a year, sometimes I do that.